I want to welcome Rob back. I know that Rob had slipped on the ice and fallen. He's here today. So we're glad that Rob's here and everybody else too. Okay, we're going to go ahead and begin. We're in Revelation chapter 21 tonight. We'll read the first 9 verses and then we'll end it there for tonight. Then we'll have discussion though. I'm not just going to read it, Gary. Don't get all excited. The new heaven and the new earth. This is probably what most people are familiar with in Revelation, with the exception of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse or Armageddon, but this comes of the description of heaven and this new Jerusalem. The discussion that we'll have tonight is whether this is a literal, physical new earth, or is it something that is spiritual, or is it kind of like a hybrid of that. Beginning in chapter 21, verse 1, we'll be reading out of the New American Standard Bible. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven, the first earth passed away, and there is no longer any sea. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, made ready as a bride adorned with for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is among men, and he will dwell among them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be among them. And he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will no longer be any death. There will no longer be any mourning or crying or pain. The first things have passed away." And he who sits on the throne said, "Behold, I am making all things new." And he said, "Write, for these words are faithful and true." Of course, he's talking to John here. Then he said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give to the one who thirsts from the spring of water of life without cost. He who overcomes," key word in the book of Revelation, goes all the way back to the 7 churches, and we'll talk about that as we go through. "He who overcomes will inherit these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and immoral persons and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came and spoke with me, saying, 'Come here, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb.'" When we look at Revelation, we're going to go back to verse 1, if you want to go ahead and switch back. There's a new name. There's a new kingdom. There's a new Jerusalem. There's a new song, as we know. All things new. As we look through this and go through this, like I said, there's some discussion of what this new Jerusalem is. And depending on whether you're a premillennialist or postmillennialist, either before the 1,000-year reign or after the 1,000-year reign, will determine, for most part, whether you believe that this is a literal, physical new earth, basically a new planet that comes after this one is wiped away. The amillennialist means what? What does amillennial mean? A meaning, what's that? Without or against. No 1,000-year. The 1,000-year, yeah, they agree that there's a 1,000-year, but it's not a literal 1,000-year. You're looking at 10, which is the number of perfection, times 10 times 10, a perfect period of time as defined by Christ. The spiritual approach to the book of Revelation says that this 1,000-year reign is the new, or the Christian dispensation that we live in. When you hear the word dispensation, think of age, time period, okay? The premillennialists believe that the new Jerusalem here is going to be an earthly Jerusalem. It will be renovated and restored for Christ's 1,000-year reign. You know, when I read some of these things and some of these beliefs, I'm just like, wow, I don't see how we get that. The literist says that created after the close of the millennium, or else at the second coming, that's when the New Jerusalem will occur. The New Jerusalem described here will be the eternal home of the redeemed, but it will be a planet type thing. Thoughts on that? What do you think, Dave? You think that's going to happen? Because it says there's not going to be any sea, right? Right. And as we see, where is eternity basically in the New Testament? Where is it described? And where? Heaven or hell, right? Is heaven ever described anywhere else in the New Testament as a planet or a new physical dimension? No. And we'll look at that as we go through. The non-literalists take this to be, and we'll look at this. When you go and you look in Isaiah chapter 65, and they talk about that there is this new order, this new Jerusalem, this new Zion that is coming, that there is this church that is coming, these people that are coming, this new order that is coming. Well, when we get into the New Testament, and John and Peter both talk about this new Jerusalem, this holy city, are they referring to just the church coming and something new coming to replace that? Or are they talking about a literal or physical earth? We'll look at that. How many of you have heard mainly that the New Jerusalem is a physical planet or a new earth? You guys heard that? Yeah. Anybody buy that? And you know, again, as we've talked about in the study of Revelation, you can read all of Revelation and we can all read the same verse, and we're not always going to agree on all of the symbology and the metaphors and the figurative language here, but we always must remember is that there is hope, the victory is assured, and we are going home if we, like Revelation chapter 2, verse 10 and 11 say, remain faithful unto death. If we overcome, like it says in Revelation chapters 2 and 3, and even in 12:11, that the victory is ours. Let's see. I'm not going to... I want to read this. This is by Wiederwolf. It says, there are indeed certain phrases which at first seems to imply that the earth is the scene where these glories are manifested. But on the other hand, the whole conception and description of the vision forbid the supposition of it being a terrestrial scene. Can I get somebody to read Galatians 4, chapter 26, and then Hebrews 12, 22, and 23? Who's going to take Galatians for me? Mr. Sears, Galatians 4, 26, and then who will read Hebrews 12, 22 through 23? Mr. Sears Jr. You're reading the first one, he's reading the second one. Hebrews 12, 22 through 23. Are you doing both? Or he raised his hand. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I was wondering what you were saying. Do you want to, can we do a mic? Carter, you want to be the mic guy tonight? Awesome. All you'll have to do is hand it to people. It's already green, okay? You want to hand it to your dad for me so I don't have to get close? This is Galatians chapter 4, verse 26.
But the Jerusalem that is above is free, and she is our mother.
Okay, Carter, hand it to yourself and read Hebrews chapter 12, 22 and 23.
But if you have come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, you have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, who those are written in heaven. You have to come to God, the judge of all, to all spirits and the righteous made perfect.
Okay, I'm going to read 2 Peter chapter 3. We'll start in verse 9. 2 Peter chapter, well, actually, we'll go back. Oh, I'm in 2 Peter 2. I was like, man, that does not like right. 2 Peter chapter 3, we'll go back to verse 8. It says, but do not let this one fact escape your notice, beloved, that with the Lord 1 day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like 1 day. The Lord is not slow about his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient towards you, not wishing any to perish, but for all to come to repentance. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be burned up, like you said, Dad. It's all going to be burned up and pass away. Since all these things are to be destroyed in this way, what sort of people ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be destroyed by burning, and the elements will melt with intense heat? But according to his promise, we are looking for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. So that's kind of about some of the background that we have, and we see that we are told over and over again that the earth is going to be destroyed. Does that scare you, Andy? Why? What does Gary always say at the end of his prayers? Lord, come quickly. Why do you say that, Gary? I don't know if you heard it. Because he's seen too much here. You ready to go home, Roy? I don't mean to blaspheme. You ready? Huh? Yes or no? Is that an honest answer? Yeah, obviously. Do you agree with that? You love this part of the world, but like Gary said, we've seen so much negative, we've seen so much evil. Imagine being a first century Christian and being told that this earth is going to pass away and there's going to be a new Jerusalem coming down from heaven. Charles, did you have your hand up? Okay. Any comments before we begin? Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and earth passed away, and there is no longer any sea. Can you take that microphone, Mr. Carter?
Oh. On that first part, couldn't it simply mean that a new heaven and a new earth are just referring to new places because the old one's destroyed?
And when we look at the word new, there can be like a new, like Earth 2.0.
Earth could just be a place of abode.
Right. And when we talk about that, when we get into that skeneo, when we talk about where God says he's going to dwell or he's going to tabernacle himself, if you allow me to that, just because something's new doesn't mean it's maximum strength or extra strength or Earth 2.0, right? What would a new heaven be, Gary? If it's not well, what's a new earth? If it's not Earth 2.0, then what is it? Hold on just one second. Mr. Microphone's coming right now. Thank you, Carter. You're outstanding. You can have a couple pieces of candy after church.
The word used there for new is kainos.
Kainos. Jumping ahead, but go with it.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
It tells the reader that these are new in kind. It's not a restored or a renewed heaven. This word is used when it refers to the difference between the passing of the old covenant and the prophesying of the new covenant. It's a new kind, completely all to itself, new. It's far superior to the first, and it's completely different. It's not a restoration or a renewal. Otherwise, there would have been another word used there for that.
Okay. If that's passing away, new earth, new heaven, no sea. What's the point or significance of saying there is no longer any sea? Mr. Sears, hold on a sec. Carter's running back there to you. And then we want to have somebody up front ask next. We do this just because it helps when some people watch online, so I ask for your patience in the questioning.
Well, we don't spend a lot of time in this in English or in our teaching, but in Jewish tradition, in that the devil is in the sea. The devil comes from the sea. And they're scared of the sea, rightfully so.
Okay.
And so that's being passed to them.
Okay, so what else does the sea represent in the book of Revelation? Miss Carol Obrecht for the win.
Mysteries and things are in the sea.
A lot of unknown things are in the sea. The sea gives up its dead, right? We're told that. The sea is also referenced to be like all of massive humanity. The sea is also, Carter, you're heading over there to the far left. Raise your hand up, Gene. The sea is also referenced to be having life in it, water, living water. But we're not going to have that water anymore. Gene, what's your point?
I always thought it meant the whole world.
The whole world, all of humanity. So there's not going to be any sea any longer because earth has passed away. What's the heavens? It says, I saw a new heaven and earth. The first heaven, the first earth passed away. First earth, would we say that's earth, third rock from the sun? What's heaven? Carol Obrecht again. He right now is preparing a place for us.
Totally new. It's in preparation right now.
So the heaven that's currently there right now, is that the third heaven that's going to be done away, or is that the first heaven, i.e. atmosphere, space type thing? Maureen Williams? Because they're...
The whole thing is boom, gone. The earth is gone, sea is gone, and the heavens around it is gone. No more.
You guys agree with that? I think that's pretty straightforward. Let's go to verse 2. It says, "And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband." Okay. Holy city, New Jerusalem. Again, Gary, is that the same word there in new? Yep, same word. Kanos, which is a new type. It is not Jerusalem rebuilt on top of Jerusalem. And we get into even like the physical dimensions of it, with what it's supposed to be able to fit all of, the saved in. Not going to happen. I mean, God could make it happen, but, it's, again, trying to impart the literal into a figurative book. That's not the way it was written. It's got a specific genre that it was written for. And it says, "I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God." Now, that's where a lot of people will say, well, obviously, Roy, that there is a new physical earth and there's a new planet and a new atmosphere, Maureen, that just got boomed up, as she said, because it's coming down from heaven. So what does that mean? Miss Johnny Conway, can you hold 1 second? Carter, she's right here. We just want to be able everybody to hear Miss Johnny. Thank you for your patience, Bill.
Well, to me, we're going to have a complete new setup. We're physical now.
We're physical
Flesh and
now.
blood. We're not going to be flesh and blood there, so it's going to have to be a complete different atmosphere. It won't be like what we've got here with
Okay.
rice growing and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be amazing, and we don't know what it's going to be.
And as great as John does trying to describe the vision of heaven from Revelation chapter 4 and everything, it is a poor attempt, not a poor attempt, it's the best he can do using the language that he has available to try to describe something that is indescribable. So when we see streets of gold and all of this stuff, those things don't matter. Do you think it's going to matter that you're in heaven if there's streets of gold? What's going to matter is we will see him then face to face, right? That's the newness of it. That's the greatness of it. It has nothing to do with the material things. I've got a what over the hilltop? Mansion. Correct translation of that? No. What do we have in heaven? A mansion? I think Carol said that he's going to prepare a place for us. Is that what you said, Miss Carol? Can I get somebody, since you brought it up, Carol, can I get somebody to flip over to John chapter 14, verses 1 through 6-ish? And I need you to read that out loud. Who's going to read that? Raise your hand so I can have a microphone over there. Rob, would you read that? Since Carter's right there. It'll be John chapter 14, verses 1 through 6 or so. And understand that how did the Jewish marriage take place, Rob? Before you get there, we'll open this up. Did he go buy a new home for his bride-to-be? Where did he build it? His father's house. And how did he do it? He said, hey, let's get married. And then they get married and then they build the house? They what? He was already making it. He went and prepared, and she's told, hey, you need to be what? Ready, because you don't know when he's going to finish, right? See the similarities? Carol said that Christ has gone to prepare a place for us. Does he need to prepare heaven, or is that the metaphor that, hey, he's building on to that figure of speech so that they would know what is happening here? Rob, begin in John chapter 14, verses 1 through 6. I think that's correct.
Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. Through 6?
Yes, sir.
Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
Okay, we'll stop right there. He's going to prepare a place for us. Who is the bride? That's an easy one. The church. Have we seen bride mentioned in Revelation? Yeah, let's get somebody to flip over to read Revelation chapter 19, verse 7 through 12. Somewhere around there. 7 through, I don't have it written down. 7 through 10, I think. I'll read it. Let me find it. Carter, that way you don't have to chase around. Revelation chapter 19, 7 through 10. Let us rejoice and be glad and give glory to him, for the marriage of the Lamb has come and his bride has made herself ready. It was given her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saint. Then he said to me, Write, blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said to me, These are true words of God. Now remember, we just read in Revelation chapter 21 about these words being faithful and true, okay? Then I fell at his feet to worship him, but he said to me, Do not do that, I am a fellow servant. Okay, so we see that this bride, this church, is being prepared to be married. Heaven, the marriage feast. And we see in Revelation 19 that is in contrast, and we even look in Revelation chapter 17 with that harlot that is described as something beautiful and wonderful that everybody wants to see, and then you get up close to the harlot and realize, in fact, it's a harlot and not what it appears to be. Whereas the church, it is clothed in fine linen, and it is clean, and it is bright, not because of anything that Gary's done or Gene's done, but because of everything that God has done for us if we remain faithful unto death. Any comments on that before we move on? Pretty straightforward in these things. And I heard a loud voice from the throne. A lot of speculation who this loud voice is. Is it the loud voice from chapter 19 and 20? Or is it this loud voice that's something to... Behold, the tabernacle of God is among men, and he will dwell among them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be among them. God going to live on a physical earth, Terry? Or is it like Miss Johnny said, that this is going to be a spiritual realm? What does it mean? We talked about this, maybe you guys remember, Hebrew, Jewish term, the Shekinah, what is that? It is the presence of God. Where was the presence of God in the Old Testament? In the tabernacle? On the mountain? It could be wherever he was, obviously, right? Where's it going to be now? Is it going to be a theophany where God is in a burning bush? Or as the new movie Exodus, Gods and Kings, he's a 9-year-old boy standing in front of the burning bush? No. He is going to be there. Will you be able to see God face to face, Gary? As he is, whatever that is, right? Are you going to be fearful? You going to be scared, Nick? Is scared the right word, or can I flip it and say reverent?
I think fear is the right word.
Okay, why?
One, because God uses it for himself as a word to describe him, or him, or what. But I think fear is a good word to use here.
Okay. Mr. Smith goes to Bellevue. Can you wait 1 sec? Because I'm really hard of hearing, and it would help me if you could just wait. Thank you. Turn it over.
The Bible says that we're going to know him and he's going to know us. So with complete knowledge, I don't see fear.
And I tend to agree with that as well. We're going to know him. He's going to know us. We're going to have his name written on us. Andy, you disagree? Don't throw things. That's a mean looking look. You've made it. I think, and I get what you're saying, though, Nick, that there's that reverence. He's a fearful God. We see that if we look in Nahum that we've read in chapter 1 and even 2 and 3, that he's a vengeful God. He's a jealous God. But at that point in the game, we've won. Or maybe the better way is he's won and we've tagged along, sitting on the bench. Well, the gates are open. Will there be sin in heaven, Gary? Andy just said there's a possibility of that. Verse 4, famous verse, no tears in heaven, the song. And he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will no longer be any death, nor there will be no mourning, crying, pain. The first things have passed away. Why are all those things gone? I'm looking for one answer. There's lots of answers, but I'm looking for one. It's easy. What's that? No physical body. Terry Smith for the win. No sin. Thank you. So sin causes crying. Sin causes pain. Why do you say that, Betty? Genesis. Was there sadness, Dave, in the garden before sin? Not before sin. Pain? Was there a tree of life? Is there a tree of life in heaven? Is there a stream, a living stream? Do we see it coming full circle? To where we are then finally, once and for all, reconciled back to what He has created for us. A paradise, if you will, in the way we describe it. Hey, wow, look at that beautiful scenic, bayou and everything, and that's paradise. Paradise in the sense that it is the way God had intended it to be, to where there's no sin, all the negatives, no sin, no pain, no crying, none, no. Is that because He wipes them away? No, because they don't have the opportunity. And from what my point that I'm getting across, it goes to Terry, who gets the plus 10 bonus points tonight, is the fact that there is no sin. You agree with that? Yeah, you. Okay. Any comments before we move on? I got to check what time. I'm sorry. Gary has a question. Say it out loud. Hold on just a second. You're going to wait for the microphone since you're going to stir up that nest. I pray for you guys. You guys are great people. You are patient people. If I didn't love you so much, I wouldn't let you finish this question. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sure we've thought of this, each one of us, in conversations with those we love, that this is all one sentence here, that God Himself shall be among them, and He shall wipe away their tears. That's not a tense of where He is continuously wiping away your tears. This is once and it's done. There will be no more sorrow or mourning or sadness. So does this mean that we forget those who we cherished on earth who are not with us in heaven? Are they forgotten?
Carol? So in the Hadean world, before the second coming, we may know those, i.e. like Luke 16, the rich man looking down there. But once the second coming, when Christ comes, then you don't remember? He takes that memory away so that you're not sorrowful? Or does He say, hey, you're here, that's all that matters? What do you think, Mr. Wells? Answer your question.
Well, then from this, we have to understand also that those who are lost will have full knowledge and memory of their previous lives, the opportunities lost, that no amount of regret can make amends for a life ill spent, with the full knowledge that those loved ones who are in heaven remember them no longer as part of that torment.
And the thing is that sorrow doesn't always lead to repentance, correct? You can be sad about something, sad about the consequence, but it doesn't lead to repentance. Andy, did you have your hand up? Who on earth has the ability to understand God's love? Who, Lee? Christ? I mean, we love. How many types of love are there in the Greek? Good answer. What are they? We'll start with the friendship, brotherly, like in phileo. What's the romantic love? Eros. What is the love from parent to child, parent to child, child to parent? Storge. And what is the one that wraps everything up and is completely selfish? Do we understand agape love completely? We know we can give an example of it. We can give an example of Christ. Do we know? Who would describe the love of God, since Andy brought it up and took us way off on a tangent? Minus 20 for your whole row.
We don't understand God's love, and His love has the ability that we said there's no tears. So do I understand whether I'll have memories? I don't know, but I know his love is going to overcome my tears. Okay, so.
His love is going to overcome our tears. And our goal is to do everything we can each and every day of our life to make sure those that we have a relationship with and love and those that are lost are there. I told you the story about Stafford North with his family. You know, he wrote the books, 7 Keys to Unlocking the Book of Revelation, taught at Oklahoma Christian. They don't say goodbye in their family. They say, be there. Whatever it takes for you to live your life until we meet again, whether it's next week at dinner or at service on Wednesday night, do whatever it takes to ensure that you will be there. It's a simple way to say that obey God's will in every aspect of your life throughout the week, continually in your prayer life, in your study, to be there. That is, I will say this, and I'll speak for Lisa here, and she'll correct me right now. That is our biggest fear or concern as parents, is that we want our kids to be there. And we talk, have we done enough to ensure that solid foundation? Have we given them a conviction? You know, I'm going to pick on Lexi there with a broke tailbone real quick because I'm proud of her. She just turned 18 yesterday. She's almost legal in the state of Nebraska because it's 19. But one of the things that, you know, I told Lisa about when we talked today, she goes, hey, have you seen the school newspaper? And I was like, no. And I'm a dad, so I'm bragging, and I have the mic, so just allow me. So I'm looking, and they have this big centerfold in the middle of this school newspaper of all the different athletes from Millard South who have committed to different places. And, you know, they're like, I went here because I'm not ready to hang up my cleats, and, you know, it provides me a way to play 4 more years of football or softball. And then I read Lexinator's, and hers is, I wanted a Christian school that was small. And I was like, man, here's a kid who's 18 years old in a school of 2,400 who just stated to everybody, I'm a Christian. And talking to Lisa this afternoon, and you know, some of the actions that she's taken at school this past week in the lunchroom when a kid's getting picked on because they look a little different or they act a little different. And she goes and says, I'm going to sit next to this girl. Those are the things that encourage me. Because I want Lexi to be there. I want Allie to be there. I want you to be there. And it's not so much so there's no pain, although I look forward to the day to wake up and not have pain. And I don't have near as much pain as people like Ginger and Penny. But to wake up one morning and not have a pain level of 6, you know, I fully expect to get to heaven and God says, Jeff, what's your pain level today on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm like, what's pain? That's going to be awesome. But even more awesome is that is I will be and see him as he is. And whether I know who's not there, if I'm there, and we've done all that we can to make sure everybody else is there, that's love. That's all we can do. As far as what it looks like, who cares? We're with God. It's not going to get any better than that. I hope I didn't embarrass you too much, Lexinator, and thank you for allowing me that little tangent. But, you know, that is a concern for us. And I know as, you know, I look at Nick and Miranda and Carter, how old are you? 9 years old. Carter's 9 going on 18. He's so smart and mature. You still get in trouble, though, right? Not at school. Nice qualifier. But I know that's a concern. I know that's a concern for all of us, whether it's our kids or our friends, is to make sure that we all get to experience this. Verse 5 says, and he who sits on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. And he said, write, for these words are faithful and true. I don't think there's any really comments to go on that. Verse 6 says, then he said to me, it is done. It is done. What does that mean, Gary? What is done? The earth is done, or his promises that he has made to everybody is done, and that this is the end? Anyone? You think that, Bill? What is it is done? Earth? Promises? He has accomplished all in the right time at the right hour, right? What? Second time he said that. When was the first time? On the cross. It's actually it's like an accounting term. I think it's tetelestai. Yeah, that's the way you say it. That's a Texas pronunciation, but it means what, Gary? And it's an accounting thing. Paid in full. All dead, wiped out. Yeah, everything's done. Because it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give to the one who thirsts from the spring of the water of life without cost. Bible test. Christ calls himself the living water where? In the Gospels. The woman at the well, I think it's John 4:10. Is that somebody look that up? Because that was like a trivia question that popped. When you have an empty head, stuff just flies through here. You just got to let it out sometimes. Somebody have John 4:10? That must not be right. It's somewhere in there. Is that right? Can you read it, Michelle? Okay. Michelle's going through puberty, so her voice is cracking. Go ahead, Lee. Okay, the last part of verse 6 says, I will give to the one who thirsts from the spring of water of life without cost. Is that referring to in heaven? So do we thirst? Or is that a metaphor for something? And what's Christ telling the woman at the well? It's not about a temporal, tangible water. It's a living water, right? Let's get through verse 7. Let's see what time it is. I've got a few minutes. Verse 7 says, he who overcomes will inherit these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. We've said this over and over again. We see this in Revelation, the Nikao, Nike, he who overcomes. In Revelation chapter 2 and 3, we see this in the 7 churches in Revelation 2, verse 7, verse 11, verse 17, 26, 3 verse 5, 3 verse 12, and verse 21. Overcome. That's all it takes. Overcome. Remain faithful unto death. Submit therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. The work's been done, the battle, the war has been won, correct? And today, each and every day, many times often during a day, we have a choice to make. Whose side are we on? Do we remain convicted and stand firm in the presence of persecution and evil? We live in a world today that equates very well to the Roman Empire. It also equates on an immorality side to the Assyrian Empire that we read this morning and talked about in Nahum. This is a sinful world. You may throw a label on America that says it's a Christian nation, but reference Christian nation to what God says a Christian is called to be, and then see if we're a Christian nation. Overcome, stand firm. This is the message that repeats itself through Revelation. While there's a lot of metaphors and a lot of wild imagery and visual, understand that those are painting a picture for us, painting a picture for those first century Christians to drive a message home, because we often know that if we have that mental image, that word picture, we can remember things a lot better. Okay? Check my time reel one more time. Yeah, we're going to pick up in verse 8, but I want you to look at verse 8. We're going to read this. It says, "But for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and immoral persons and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death." Why did he put liars in there with murderers? That seems kind of harsh. But what about the first word? That's the word I want you to look at and think about and pray about and study this week, where he says, "But for the cowardly." What does that mean? Does that mean being timid? 2 Timothy, hey, he's not given us a spirit of what? Timidness, fear, but of power and love and discipline? Is it cowardness to where, which is a word we don't use very often? Man, that person's a coward. You know, unless you're watching a Western. He's yellow-bellied or yellow-backed, whatever that is. That's before my time. So what does that mean in reference to here saying they're going to be, roasting down in the lake of fire? That's not for next week. That's the first week in January. I will be gone next week. Gary Johnston will be teaching Sunday morning's lesson, and Mr. Trevor Rick will be bringing the lesson next Sunday night. Do we know who has singing tonight?